Hi, I'm Vivian Stutmans. I'm a curator at the Vitra Design Museum, and I've got the pleasure today to invite Alice Stori Liechtenstein. She's a contemporary design curator, and she lives at one of the most extraordinary places for design and works there as well. So I will let her tell the story of what she does and how she does it. I'm really curious about it myself, and I will just invite her now to get her in. There she is. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. It's lovely
Can
to
you
be
hear me?
here.
Yes,
Well,
lovely to see
always for
you
them.
too. Um, I'm really curious to hear a lot about what you're doing and how you've been doing it in these past few months as well.
Yeah.
So, yes, you are originally, let's perhaps start with your background in design. So you were born and raised in Milan, and what brought you to design?
Well, I actually at the beginning I thought I wanted to be an artist myself, and and then I decided I really like the practical aspects of design much more than the art. And so I studied interior design, and then I specialized in exhibition design. And for me, the exhibition has always been a medium to tell a story, and a way to also present the work of other people. So that felt like a very creative output, but more at the service of other people's work.
Okay, and so now you live in this most extraordinary place. I have to admit, I haven't been, but for everybody, I do recommend doing the 3D tours. They're amazing that you've got on your website. So there is a way of experiencing the castle digitally as well. But how did you and the castle come together? What's the story there?
Well, the castle is belongs to my husband's family, and it's been in my husband's family for a fairly long time. Next year will be 200 years, so 7 generations. And I have to
And
say,
sorry, it's in Graz, right? Near
it's
Graz. I
outside
forgot to
Graz.
say that. Yeah, so
Yes,
in
sorry.
Austria. Yeah.
It's in Austria, it's in Steiermark, and it's about 45 minutes from Graz. It's a beautiful location, but I was not raised as a countryside person. So I was a little bit scared at the prospect of moving to a castle. But 6 years ago, we finally decided, okay, we're ready for the move. And the moment we moved here with the children and the family, I realized that it was really important to open up the place in a way and to bring something of the contemporary spirit. What is particularly interesting about the castle is that over the almost 900 years of its history, every generation has added something to it. So you have medieval structures, you have a Renaissance courtyard, you have a Baroque church, you have a neo-Gothic wing, then there is a 19th century, 20th century terrace. And so it felt like, okay, what are we bringing in this century? And it couldn't just be central heating and a lift. I felt that wasn't quite what was required of the place. And
But it
so
was
that was,
that too, right? As
yes,
far as,
we
yeah.
did that as well, and added a few bathrooms, which was also quite needed. But I felt, well, I've been working in design for 20 years now. Let's open up the space and let's bring contemporary design and bring it in dialogue with the historical pieces of the place.
Okay, so what was the first, apart from the central heating, obviously, because I think you moved into one of the wings, right? But
Yes.
as as I can see, there's a lot of space still that's kind of open to the public now, or that's available to do other things. You're not inhabiting the entire space,
No,
right?
no, we actually have one wing of the place. It's still very big, obviously, because the rooms are so large in this place. And then there's a whole part which doesn't actually have electricity. It doesn't have heating, and those are the kind of more formal rooms. And those are the ones that in May, when we have the exhibition, we open up to the public. And that's been really quite a novelty, and it's something which we've only just started doing 6 years ago. And so
And it was never open to the public
it
before,
was
so
never
that's the first time you did it?
Yes, it was the first time that we did it. And one of the reasons was because I was so I was so touched by the fact that the people in the area were really excited that there was someone living in the castle again. And they gave us a really warm welcome. And the other thing which really surprised me that I wasn't prepared is that they are all, they really identify with the history of the castle. They really feel that it's part of their identity. And that was what brought me to the idea of like really opening up the place once a year at least, because they really feel part of its history. And it felt like, okay, we'll come and see what's inside it.
Okay, but it's quite far away from a bigger city. So was the first thing you did was to bring in the residencies as well, or did you do the exhibitions first?
No, the first thing was actually the residency, and it started because I had just done an exhibition for the Design Monat in Graz, and it went really well, and it was a lot of fun. And we were like, after the opening, we were talking with a few designers, and I had Mischa Traxler, which are fairly well-known Austrian designers, and I was like, well, could you imagine doing a residency in Hollenig? And they were like, yeah, wieso nicht? Yeah, why not? And that suddenly was like, well, if they want to do a residency, then I'm sure there are other designers who want to do a residency. So they were actually one of the first designers to come. That was summer of 2015. And I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, because of course, the moment you have a designer for a residency and they do a project, then you have to present the project. So I kind of invited designers because I felt it was, okay, this is going to be fun. And then suddenly I realized, well, now I need to prepare an exhibition. And as it often happens, the first year, it went so smoothly and so easily that I just didn't even think about it. You know, I was like, oh, this is so easy. And
so was this an exhibition of their work, or was it something that they had done throughout their residency?
We had 3 designers in residence. So there was Dosso Fiorito, which are Italian, Mischa Traxler, and Dean Brown, who's Scottish. But then I invited and I selected other pieces and I invited other designers. So altogether there were 20 projects on show. And yeah, it was just a very, I don't know, it's beginner's luck. You know, the second year, suddenly the bar was raised and everything that could go wrong went wrong. So the second year was much more of a challenge. But I think if the first year hadn't gone so well, I probably would have stopped. And you know, I'm 5 years now and going, so it's actually really good that some days are easier than
and
others.
I was very impressed with the catalog of designers that you've invited into the exhibitions. There's just so many contemporary designers from all over the world. So how do you work with them? Do you kind of choose some of the work that you see somewhere? Because I mean, I suppose I'm talking from a personal interest as well. We, as you know, we are in Weil am Rhein, which is near Basel, so it's quite metropolitan. It's also right in the middle of Europe, but it still doesn't mean that we're traveling all the time. We're talking to people all the time. Sometimes it's really hard to sort of stay in touch with all these different people and see what they're up to at the moment, to understand how they're working, to perhaps come up with ideas collaboratively to exhibit. And so I'm really curious what sort of way you're using to stay in touch with people.
Well, I mean, pre-COVID, I did actually travel quite a bit. So I'd been going the last 6 years, I'd been going to a lot of design weeks, graduation shows. So I would probably be doing a trip, at least a trip a month. And for me, it was really about meeting the designers. It wasn't just about seeing who did exceptional work, but it was really trying to like get to know the person, trying to understand their methodology and see which ones had a potential, but also needed some kind of like, you know, input or mentorship or information. So it's not just about collecting a bunch of very good designers. It's also really about supporting them and helping them develop and pushing them a little bit further. There are some fantastic designers out there, which I love, but they don't need this kind of structure. So it's really about choosing the right ones and seeing who I get on with. It's a quite intimate relationship when they come as designers in residence, because they really live here we have a lot of meals together, we have a lot of chats. So it's, you know, you have to like the people and they have to kind of like you as well. So I think in design, we deal with objects, but the people are behind every single object. So you have to really talk about the people and how you get on and discuss ideas. And
so it seems like that's a central or a central point in how you understand yourself and your role is to be kind of a promoter of people who deserve a platform and kind of perhaps collaboratively develop the work towards something else. Does that mean you're commissioning work as well that's going to be
yes,
shown
so
for the first time? Is that really something that interests you a lot? Because I feel like
the designers
sorry.
in residence are effectively commissioned projects. So
Mm-hmm.
you know, they get given a theme, which is the theme of the exhibition.
Mm-hmm.
They can choose a room. I try and get the funding going so that we have, you know, I try and put together cooperations with companies. So in the past, we've worked with different design companies that kind of support and are kind of like godparents to the project. So it is effectively a way of commissioning work. What has been really amazing was that the first year, most of the projects that I selected, apart from the designers in residence, were projects that already existed. But over the years, more and more designers have said, no, but for you, I want to do something special. I want to do a new project. And don't look at the old stuff. Tell me what to do new. So actually, this year and last year, out of 20 projects that we exhibited, I think 17 or 18 were brand new projects. So there really is a desire for the designers to, like, you know, have someone they can discuss ideas with and produce something especially to a given theme.
And also to develop work outside of a very commercial, it seems like it's a very much an experimentation field that you're sort of opening up for them. Is that how you understand yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, I always say, yes, we do design, but it's not about the chair being an industrial product that is super comfortable. It's more about the chair pushing a boundary in terms of materials or communicating an idea or raising awareness for the environment. So there's always a very strong storytelling element, and there's a lot of freedom. So I don't discuss aesthetic choices with the designers. Never. I never say, oh, green is my favorite color, or why don't you try and do that, you know, more organic shape. I mean, I feel that's really not part of the role that Schloss Hollenig for Design should have. It's more about, have you tried, you know, explaining better your idea, or have you tried proposing different kind of materials? You know, it's more about the concept that's behind it.
And we see that kind of means, like if you deconstruct it a little bit, it means that the exhibition themes that you're setting, the kind of brief you're giving those designers, it opens up a space for them to experiment. And you also, if you're working with companies as godparents for them, it also means that you play quite a role in perhaps the shaping the narrative of what happens in design, and then perhaps also what becomes available commercially in the end, if there is already that connection with the companies, right? I mean, maybe this isn't happening on a large scale, but I suppose this would be the idea, right?
Yeah, I think it's more of I see it very much as a kind of a group effort. Yeah. So for example, especially this year, we had all the designers in residence at the same time. So it was, you know, we were between 10 and 17 people staying here in Hollenig over a period of 2 weeks. And we had a lot of discussions for the theme for next year and what does it mean. So I think in the end, it's very much of a group dynamic, and it's a joint effort. So yeah, I think maybe we are, you know, exploring new ways or exploring themes, and also you know, pushing in some directions. But I really think it's very much a group effort.
But this year you had a very interesting theme, considering the timing. I'm not sure if that was a coincidence or not. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more?
Well, I start planning the exhibitions. I mean, it's still quite short compared to a museum, but I do start planning the exhibition a year and a half in advance. So Walden, yes, it felt very very appropriate. So when in March, I was in a very long denial phase. I was like, no, we're going to be open, we're going to be fine, Austria is going to be great. And then when I actually suddenly realized, it's like, no, we're not going to open, no one is going to come, we can't do this, we can't open the exhibition for safety reasons. I suddenly, I was like confronted with the decision, what do I do? Do I just cancel or do I find another solution? And I felt that the theme was so relevant all the same.
Can you talk about it a little bit, perhaps, for the uninitiated who are not familiar with Walden?
Walden was all about, the exhibition that we put on was very much about our relationship with nature. And Walden, on one side, is a very famous book by Thoreau about his experience living in a hut in the woods. But in German, the word Walden, which is Walden, which is pronounced Walden, it has this echo of Wald, of forest. So although it's a word that doesn't actually exist, it sounds a little bit like the verb for rewilding or foresting or being in the forest. And I felt that was a little bit the idea. We really wanted to talk about the environment and our relationship with the environment, but I wanted to have a positive narrative. So it was very much about how do you combine the inside with the outside, nature with man-made, the artificial with the natural. So this was a little bit the theme, and I just asked the designers, how do you bring a little bit of wilderness in our everyday life? That was the brief. And considering that most of us were, at some point we were in lockdown and very much closed inside, I think we were all craving this idea of nature in our everyday life, and everyone was suddenly like noticing the birds singing, and you noticed that the air was better. So I think there was a lot of desire to be in nature, and anyone who could afford it tried to move to the countryside. So that was definitely very interesting to be exploring this theme within this context as well.
And can you just talk a little bit, just briefly, maybe a couple of examples of the work that was there and how it was developed within the sort of commission format or the residency?
Yeah, I mean, the works were very, very different, more so than usual. And I think because the theme really is so complex and so diverse. So we had, for example, one of the designers in residence was Clemens Schillinger, who's Austrian. I have actually the lamp here, so then maybe I can show it. And he designed a lamp that you have to wind yourself and recharge yourself. So the idea is like it's an off-grid lamp, and you really notice how much effort it takes to make a little bit of light. And then you can unplug it and take it, although it's not really plugged, but you can lift it as if it was a torch or a candle. Then we had a project by Crafting Plastics done with the bioplastic, so 100% biological material that can be worked with heat or pressure like plastic or mold.
Crafting Plastics being a group, a collective?
Crafting Plastics, they are designers from Bratislava in Slovakia. We had a dry toilet by Arvid and Marie, so a kind of very low technology object, but then it's 3D printed, so a kind of very modern technology. We had a chair made out of paper. We had a kind of panel that imitated the sound of rain. So they were very diverse kind of projects.
And all of these ideas eventuated through discussions in amongst the designers as well, or was there sort of in between?
Some more than others, not all of them, but definitely some were because the designers were also discussing amongst themselves and seeing how they were each how they each reacted to the theme.
Mm-hmm. We discussed before that it's a little bit risky to walk around with the phone because of the very thick walls of the castle, but we also both decided that it's worth taking that risk to some degree. So do you want to perhaps show us some of the work, and also one thing that I didn't kind of ask you to go into, but I think it's super interesting, is your background as an interior designer, and then these layers of kind of personal interiors that were brought into the castle by all of the inhabitants. I think there's some interesting stories there too. We've got about 10 minutes, so it would be lovely to get a little bit of a tour of what's there.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So I'll show you first of all. Let me switch around so you can see a little bit. So I'll just show you. This is our living room, and what we have at the walls is a Chinese wallpaper which is hand painted, and this is a fairly formal still room. But then we have here, you can see like a very funny looking lamp, and I'll just show you because this is a lamp. But so you have to wind it to make light.
I see.
And then you can actually lift it and carry it with you.
So it's become part of your personal collection now?
Well, yes. So we've made several of these lamps. So we have three. So this one is actually here because it will be shown at the Vienna Design Week in 3 weeks. So it's still here, and I brought it so I could show it to you. And we'll be walking a little bit this way because I have a few more things to show you. So
the wallpaper you just talked about, was that there before? Is it something you put in?
No, the wallpaper was there. It's been there for probably since the middle of the 18th century. So it's
right.
been there for quite a while, yeah. And this is
okay.
the dining room, and again we have, the same kind of wallpaper. We have an old stove, and we have old style chairs, but then we have an extremely modern table. This is by Atelier Biagietti, which are Italian designers, and here we have a breathing lamp by Michel Traxler. So.
Was that part of the Walden show as well, or is it an earlier piece?
This wasn't. This was actually, it was my 40th birthday present. So all my friends got together, and they knew that I loved this lamp and that I need calming objects around me. So they decided to give me this.
Okay.
But I'll be showing you. So we'll be going out, and I'll be showing you a little bit of the courtyard. It's a sunny day here. So you can see a little bit, hopefully still quite good. So this is the courtyard of Hollenig. It's
amazing. And this is where the designers will stay as well, if they...
Yes. So the terrace up there, which you can see just here, this is where they have a kind of like, in the corner they have a kitchen, and then they have a working area. And this is a dry toilet I was telling you about before. This is by a couple called Arvid and Marie. They are French-Dutch designers. And so the dry toilet basically is just a very simple toilet. And the idea is that you use the waste for compost. And this is a 3D printed object. And what they've done is they've taken inspiration from Romanesque columns where the capital is always kind of engraved with stories. So here they've really explored the whole story of waste and the cycle of water. So it's a kind of a bit of a funny object, and it had a lot of success online. And I have to say, I find it's very suited to the theme. And then here I'm going to show you, because the internet seems to be working quite well. So I'm showing you, this is...
okay, we'll just test the boundaries for next time. Yeah.
This is a chair made out of mycelium. This is by Jonas Edvard. He's a designer from Denmark. And this is made with the roots of mushrooms. So it's completely dried. It's very light. It's actually absolutely resistant. But the day that you decide, okay, I want to give it back to nature, you just put it on a compost pile, and it will go and feed the environment again. So,
and was this a commission, one of those commissioned pieces for the show, or?
No, the chair was a piece which Jonas had been working on already, and he's done lamps as well. So that's something that I found, and I felt, okay, this is very suited. The dry toilet instead was something that Arvid and Marie designed especially for the exhibition. So I really gave him the theme, and then we discussed, and we decided, they kind of made this proposal, and I felt, okay, this is appropriate.
Okay.
So I'm slowly walking back. I think but the internet has been stable, I think, hasn't it?
Okay, fine. So, so the Walden exhibition finished, obviously, and so now you're getting ready for winter, which I think is a sort of a quieter time where you're just working with people on the theme for the next year. Do you already know what your future plans are?
Well, okay, so the future plans are, we're having a part of a selection of objects from Walden is going to the Vienna Design Week in 3 weeks. We have here design talks coming up also. So we have 2 days in which Austrian designers and companies come and talk about how they collaborated together. And then
sorry, quick question about that. So you're actually having that at the castle?
Yes, having that.
So that you're going through with it.
Exciting because that's happening in real life. So we have some. Obviously, we'll be keeping much more distance, but we are in a very large room. So I think we'll have less people than usual. We have a bit of a number, but we're going ahead with that. So that was meant to be in July. We've postponed it now to September.
But it's also part of your kind of self-understanding of someone who's a bit of a matchmaker and a promoter of perhaps more sustainable design practices also within industry. Is that what brought you to?
Like a lot of people are a little bit scared of working with design because they don't know how to go about it. They don't know the designers themselves. So it's a little bit a way of demystifying the relationship and saying it's a normal working relationship. Yeah. And working with a designer is like working with any kind of professional. So the idea is to really present successful examples of cooperation, and for the designers and the company to really say, this went well, this didn't go so well, but we made it work, and this is the result. And this is it's more done on a regional level. So we usually choose Austrian designers and Austrian companies, and it is a way of bringing design to a local level. So really showing that, you can have it even if you produce, I don't know, pumpkin seed oil. You can have a kind of design approach, and you can design a beautiful packaging or a good communication or a beautiful product. So that's a little bit, it's less experimental and it's more business oriented, but it's very important to be on the territory, I think.
Okay, so to engage also with local craft practices,
Yes.
Is that something? And the local, I know your family is involved in the timber industry, so it sort of seems like you're taking this connection of the castle to the local vernacular and practices and very seriously to also kind of give something to that environment or bring something to that environment from the outside.
I think it's very important. I think it's one thing which is important to me is to be like linked to the territory and to realize that, people in the countryside have the same needs and the same aspirations and the same interests as people in the city have. And but there's obviously less infrastructure and less offer. So I feel for people in the countryside, it's also a duty to give back and to create a creative environment outside the big cities. There's so much going on in the big cities. And I feel that some of that could be brought more to the countryside.
Is there a particular local kind of industry or trade traditions around you that are particular to that area, or?
Well, I mean, we are a wine region, so obviously there's a lot involving tourism, winemaking, gastronomy, and then on the other side there's the car industry, which is more towards Graz and kind of metal industry. So those are kind of like the two very different extremes.
And you're connected to those as well through the design talks or sort of connections that you?
More the wine and the kind of like tourism,
Food.
and
Yeah.
I definitely more in that direction.
Okay. And one last question before we can take some questions from the people who are watching. Um, the residencies, are they? I could imagine that many designers and young designers are interested in getting in touch with you and understanding how the system works, and because everyone loves this idea of a mentor. And so how does the system there work? Do you approach people or?
Well, the first years it was on invitation only, mainly because we were not that well known, and I was still kind of learning as well what I was doing. So it was more about finding the right people and starting a conversation. This year we had our first open call, which
Right.
went really well, and so we're going to be having a second open call probably towards the end of January. For the summer residency of 2021. So we usually send out a newsletter, and we publicize it on Instagram and social media. And yeah, so that's the official way of applying for a design residency.
Right. And do you feel like you are particularly interested in a certain kind of design practice? I personally feel like since I've gone to design school, which is quite some years back now, the practice has really changed a lot for a designer to become a much kind of broader professional, to not just be somebody who's actively engaged in the practice of shaping objects or buildings or spaces, but also the focus on research and materials has become so strong. Circularity, so you sort of really need to be very good networker, connected to science, all those things. Is that something that you feel you're kind of looking out for in the designers who you're working with now?
I think what I like is someone who's all-rounded. Yeah. So the main thing is they need to have a real interest for history, because you're working in an environment where there is so much to discover, and you need to be very curious and you need to be inquisitive. It's very important that the designers that come to work here are designers that are interested in finding out more how it used to be
and engaging.
Engaging with the history of the place. So that's definitely a must. And then another thing which I value a lot is a very wide portfolio. So not someone who's only ever done works in glass, or someone who just works in one style. I think it's interesting when the designers can be diverse, and they can experiment with wood or experiment with glass and bring in leather and try different things out. I think that's the designers that are most suited to a kind of project as this one. I'm not saying that it's not good to focus on one material or one style. I just think that that's not the ideal situation for working in Schloss Holleneck.
And also in design practice today, you feel like it's really sort of important to be spread out, or is it more something specific to your?
No, I think it's more of a question of like how do you feel confident as a designer. So I really wouldn't say to a designer try something completely different to what you're doing. I feel it's like it's a personal research. It's become very much a way of expressing also your ideas and finding a kind of language. So there are some fantastic designers who have a very clear idea of where they want to go and what kind of things they're interested in. I think that's great. I think that's fine. So you just, as a designer, I think they just have to feel confident with that and pursue that with a real desire. But obviously, when you're working in a place like Holleneck, I think it's much more interesting if you can adapt and take in what you see and not just carry on your own research.
Right.
And
create something that's
yeah. So for me, the greatest satisfaction is when I see that a designer has kept its own language, but it's gone into a new direction. So the best example for me is always a Belgian designer. She's called Nel Verbeke. She came last year, and she's always done projects which were mostly black or gray, a lot of about nostalgia and loss. And when she came here to Holland, she actually did a project that had pink and green and still very, very delicate colors, but and the same kind of shapes that she used to. So the language is recognizable, but suddenly there was like color coming in, and she just said, look what Holland made me do. And I think that's wonderful. It's like it's still her, but she's gone in a new direction.
Right, and it's also really an expression of being engaged with that place and sort of channeling the inspiration.
Exactly.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm really looking forward to what's coming out of Holland next. So next year, I suppose you must be preparing for next year already as well,
we're
right?
preparing for May 2021. We hope to be then hopefully open to the public next year, but we're also working very hard on carrying on the being digitally competent. So this year we learned a lot. I definitely learned a lot on how to do live streaming and Instagram calls and putting everything online in the 3D. So I'm hoping.
And you've done very well. The 3D models are very impressive. Yeah. I still don't think it can replace coming to the castle, but it definitely sort of stimulates your interest in it to watch those and to get a really good sense of what to expect.
Yeah, I think it's just one should never exclude the other, and there are different mediums, and you just need to speak in the right language for each medium and have as many as possible. So hopefully next year we can be here in person and watch live streaming.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I'm gonna try and I have learned a lot too, but I'll just make sure I can. Okay, I think I've put the comment function on. So if anyone has a question now, they're welcome to ask them. And yeah.
Well, let's see if someone has questions, or they're just going to be waving at us.
Which is also nice.
Which is absolutely fine, especially if I recognize some people. So it's always nice when you see names that you think, oh, they've been following as well.
All right, well, there's waves, so let's all wave together, and then if anyone has any more questions, they're welcome to ask.
Oh, so someone is
there you go.
When I'm accepting applications. So I'm happy to receive portfolios all year round, but we'll be having an open call end of January for anyone who wants to apply properly, and we'll be giving also a theme to work on. So you'll have to wait till January.
So you're working on the theme right now.
So we're now working on one side. I'm working for the exhibition for 2021, but at the same time, I'm trying to come up with a good theme for 2022, which seems ages away, but yeah. Yeah,
and probably a lot will have changed by then at the pace that it's going now.
Probably working as well on something which is going to happen in 2022.
Not me personally. I'm working on something for next year, but my colleagues are, yes. Yeah. Everyone's always working. I think 2022 is our sort of horizon at the moment, yes. Or active working horizon. We're thinking beyond that, but actively the projects are working until 2022. So anyhow, everyone's waving, and let's wave too. And it's been really great to talk. And if you ever come to the campus, please let us know in advance, and hopefully we can make it out there too.
Comes a little bit easier. I can't wait to come back.
Yes,
I really missed not coming this year for Art Basel and design.
Yeah, it was very sad that it didn't happen, but hopefully next year. And I will start the conversation with my colleagues about a team trip to Schloss Hohenneck.
Yes,
that would be lovely.
I think that would be wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
It's been a real pleasure talking to you, and I'm very pleased that we could do that.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.